Yo, people. So, yes, I have another one. So, I've been wanting to know who this person was being played by for quite a while, and more importantly, if she was being played by anyone, because I feel, for me personally, on my personal like of the music, but also because they're such a band that is not, they played under the radar. So I was like, if these lot are part of it, then most people are going to be part of it. So let's get straight into it. I believe that Beth Gibbons from Portishead is being played by Lady Gabriella Windsor. And there she is. Now, before I get into this, I just want to explain I am a big Portishead fan, or I should say I was back in the day, in the 90s. I mean, people talk about Britpop in the 90s and how Oasis were like this big band and all the other big bands, but they weren't the coolest band. The coolest band of the 90s has to go to Portishead. I mean, at one point, Portishead was so cool that they almost became too cool. They became uber cool, which almost killed off their coolness, which is ironic, but this is what happens. They were literally the band to like at one point. And when the album Dummy came out, this album was just, it changed music. There was nothing like it. It was like something you'd heard many times, but never ever the way they'd done it. So the way they put hip hop beats, soundtrack music samples, and a haunting female vocal over it, like no one had ever done it before. So Dummy had come out in '94, and had this sort of, because it was fairly underground, it was more of an underground buzz. But by the time Glastonbury '95 came round, Portishead was the band to see. So they decided to play in the acoustic tent because they wanted the ambiance, I guess, rather than a big outdoor stage, which I think was both a big mistake, but also it has helped made this gig go down in Glastonbury folklore history, because we got there really early. So I was at this gig, and we got there really early because we knew it was going to be busy. And it was busy when we got there, like 2 bands before. And it was so busy that everyone was trying to get in. And Evan Dando from the Lemonheads was just being a dickhead. And he got booed off stage because everyone was sick of him and everyone just was there for Portishead. And he was just being, I remember him literally saying, "I don't give a fuck about your hippie fuck festival." Everyone was just booing him, throwing things at him. It was hilarious. And then eventually Portishead came on, and it was an amazing gig. But it was so busy. I remember just being able to sort of see the top of the double bass and Beth's sort of head, her forehead, and that's all I could really see because there was just so many people, and because it was this acoustic tent, it was slightly down a hill or up a hill, I can't remember, you couldn't really see properly. So it was both a mistake, because if they had done it on a stage, it would have been a better musical experience. But because they did it in the acoustic tent, and there was literally about 5 to 10,000 people trying to get in outside, it made it an epic event. So no doubt, the whole sort of quote unquote trip hop genre, I don't really like that term, but it is what it is, has influenced me and my music, and Portishead for sure. And if you listen to my last song, the latest song that I put out, How Can People Be So Heartless? I mean, the way I've done the music, and that, I didn't intentionally say I'm going to make a Portishead style track. I just make music and it comes out how it comes out, and it sounds very much like a Portishead style track, but with rapping. So when lockdown happened and I disappeared on my van to Wales and the West Country, I made sure I took a visit to the little town of Portishead, which they named the band after, and just incidentally, they're not from Portishead. It's just a little town outside Bristol, which is where they are supposedly from. So let's get back into it. So this is Beth Gibbons, and if we put Lady Gabriella Windsor and Beth Gibbons together there, I mean, you can see they are so similar, with just a little bit of change from the hair colour and the face looking. And I think Lady Gabriella's put false teeth in to change it. Beth's got sort of like freckly type face, but you know, they are the same person, 100%. And if we look here, some more photos. You know, to me, it's the eyes. I mean, obviously the hair is very similar, but the eyes that give it away, because the mouth's different. They've put different teeth in. That changes it, but the eyes are the thing that confirms it for me. So the thing that triggered it for me was I've been wanting to know who Beth Gibbons was for a long time, as I said. But this came up in the media because at the Queen's funeral, Lady Gabriella Windsor supposedly fainted, which I would suggest is just more fun and games by these royal actors. But because it put her in the consciousness, and I obviously had seen it, it sort of triggered in something to me. And then I was just looking at her, and I just suddenly was like, oh my God, she's Beth from Portishead. So this is her husband standing next to her. Thomas Kingston. He's not a royal. He's married into the royals by marrying her. This is him here. So I started Googling Beth's husband, and Beth's pretty low-key. At Portishead, generally low-key celebrities. And I couldn't find anything on Beth's husband. And I was like, oh, right. So, you know, thinking I'll try and link the husbands. And then suddenly I was looking at Portishead, and then suddenly I looked at him and went, oh my God, her husband is Geoff Barrow of Portishead, staring me right in the face. And you know, I love Portishead, but you know, I take a lot of influence from Geoff and the way he's done his music over the years with Portishead and other stuff as well. And I couldn't believe it. I didn't even think that they would be that would be her husband. But yeah, now it's just so obvious, and they look so similar that it's just like, oh man, it all makes sense. It's even I'd seen it with Beth anyway, and then this just sort of summed it all up. And if we put this picture of Geoff and her husband Thomas Kingston here together, you can just see, I mean, you know, obviously Geoff's got darker eyes, but you know, basically Geoff's hair is down, his hair is up. Easy little disguise. They've not had to do a lot, but it works really well to change. Yeah, I mean, it's a simple disguise that works really well, but you know, I've spotted it. So there's not much on Beth or Geoff because they're pretty low-key celebrity types. But I found this link here, Beth's album she did with this other guy, had a purple strip down it. And then I found this, a Portishead Japanese cassette version of the album Dummy in purple. And then on Geoff's Instagram, I found an album that he's done, or a podcast or something, Jeff's Brain Cell with purple. And then here he is being the system wearing a mask, and there's quite a few of him on his Instagram wearing a mask. And here he is promoting the you know what by mocking people that take all sorts of drugs and complain what's in the you know what. So yeah, it's a shame because I love Portishead, but they are just as much part of it as all the others. They are the system. They are just more royal actors. Peace.